Capital City Christian Church has been a fixture of the Frankfort, Kentucky landscape for over 65 years. However, the beginnings of Cap City lay 10 miles north in the Peaks Mill community. It was here, at Peaks Mill Christian Church, that the Cap City story began. Sometime in 1959, the minister of Peaks Mill, Harold Ham, felt the calling to open a Christian church within the city of Frankfort. He took this idea to the leaders of the Peaks Mill Church. Soon, Melvin Mason brought forth the motion to form the new church. The motion was seconded by longtime and founding Cap City member S.T. Smither. The motion passed, and planning began for the new Capital City Christian Church. What has followed is a story of God giving His never-ending love, truth, and grace through both setbacks and victories. The story continues today. This is that story.
It started, Harold Ham was the minister at Peaks Mill.
What I know is that he had the vision that there should be an independent Christian church in town.
And Marion Smithers' father, he was an elder out there.
S.T. and I were members of Peaks Mill Christian Church when we first married in 1957. Harold Ham was the minister. Many of the men went to a retreat in Joplin, Missouri, and met Cecil Todd, who was with Revival Fires.
And it started, they had a tent meeting up on what now is the Thornhill Bypass.
The tent actually sat in a big open field off the what we call the Thornhill Bypass, Wilkinson Boulevard, across Schenkel Lane from Hardee's, just about where Comanche Trail sat. Of course, in a 9-year-old, it was, in my mind, it was a pretty good-sized tent. I remember the evangelist, Cecil Todd, booming voice, great evangelist. The music song leader was Lowell Mason. He was, we'll say, vertically challenged, but the voice that came out of him was awesome. Had a deep, booming voice. Best I can remember, it was full about every night. Really good crowds. I do remember one afternoon, a thunderstorm rolled through, knocked about half the tent down. So a lot of the men out of Peaks Mill gathered up there, got the tent back up, and everything reset, and they did have service that night.
Our first meeting was up in an old abandoned root beer place,
which sat up on the hill about where Captain D's sits today.
They call him Chick Saunders.
The one thing that comes to mind, I seem to remember that he wore white suits.
There was a small house about where we sit right now on Locust Lane that they bought and took the insides of it out, and we used it for a little while. We built a small, I think we bought maybe the house next to it, and took them down and built a small sanctuary. I think it's concrete block, which we were in for several years. And
pretty much a white outside, some stone on it, a lot of wood finish inside, especially up around behind the pulpit area. That it's set about where the Family Life Center sits today.
I remember Sunday school and VBS classes in that little greenhouse. Helen Shelf was a teacher who, gosh, we were probably in the 3rd grade, and she was making us memorize long passages of scripture. I remember Doris Woodside teaching, probably many others. Barbara Scott, Grandma Barbara Scott, was a longtime teacher around here. He was our preacher for several years when I was little. He was also my school bus driver. So I think my mom felt better about putting me on the bus, knowing he was the preacher. He was a very passionate preacher, and when I have memories of him in that original sanctuary, I can remember him wiping the sweat off his brow, and we were on those creaky wooden, dark-colored pews. And I got to thinking afterwards that we probably didn't have air conditioning in that building, so maybe that's why he was wiping the sweat. We called him Brother Jim. He was great. Very friendly, nice guy. His wife was Frankie, and she was a singer, and she did great with the little kids. She had us all in Sunday school, and she had us all singing. She did a lot of, I still sing songs to my grandbabies that I learned from her. He was very involved with young adults. He got a big young adult Sunday school class going, I know.
We had a bond issue to build this building, and I think I might have been chairman of the bond committee. I think I maybe even prepared the bonds. It went pretty fast, but a whole lot faster than it was getting it ready.
I mean, I remember my parents having discussions about it, and since now that I'm an adult and understand those things, I know they've sacrificed. I remember moving into it. I remember there being a big deal in the newspaper about Capital City Christian Church and all the pictures, and the picture we had on the front of our bulletin of what the new sanctuary was going to look like. And, I remember the nursery, and I remember all the renovation we did to the old sanctuary building to make classrooms. Doug Hawley was so much fun. His wife was so much fun. He, I don't remember a lot about his preaching style, but I was a young teenager then, and he rounded us up every winter and took us up north on the border of Indiana and Michigan, and we stayed at Lake James Christian Assembly, and it was just really a lot of fun.
Our dog Blackberry sensed that something was happening before any of us did. I didn't know anything about a tornado, so I got a World Book and T.
Pair of tornadoes were indicated by radar at 15 miles south and 10 miles southeast of Standiford Field. These tornadoes are moving to the east-northeast at 50 miles an hour. If threatening conditions are sighted, be prepared to move to a place of safety.
We were just ready to sit down at the table. I think my grandfather was eating with us. And my dad comes running in the door, and he said, everybody right now out into the garage. And we're all like this, and then all of a sudden we hear it. And the house is just literally shaking.
The tornado hit, and we rode it out. I remember the basement window across the street flopping back and forth.
But I do remember that after it was over, of course we breathed a sigh of relief, went into the house, and went and looked out the back window to the rest of the Terralinda neighborhood. And there was nothing. The houses were flat.
We had 2x4s stuck in all four sides of the upstairs. Outside, and they were just like arrows shot in. Remnants of four identifiable different houses in this backyard right here where we sit.
When the tornado came through, I was in my mother's basement. I'll tell people that I know they think I'm lying. We had hailstones bigger than softballs. I go fast as I can, I go get a uniform, go over to Boone Center, and me and Dave Fleming flew around this area so he could report to the governor's office what a mess it was.
And we drove down as far as we could down Versailles Road, where one of the deputy sheriffs stopped us, and we could see from that point the church had been pretty much destroyed.
All that was left was the cross and the baptistry, and that little framework right there. And the pews were still there. We were able to sit in the pews.
The lady across the street where we'd gone to the basement, a day or two later said, the strangest thing happened. Said, we found a World Book encyclopedia over here. How did it get
The T. It was the T book, yeah. It was the T.
And Barbara said, oh, Tom carried that across. He was standing out on the front porch reading about encyclopedia.
The tornado was very impacting because we felt like we had just got this building finished and church seemed to be rolling along, and wham. So we rallied here before Easter Sunday and tried to pick up debris and as much as we could.
I do remember the following Sunday was Easter Sunday. And the best that I can remember is we worshiped.
I remember we had a service and we cleared off all the roof damage from the pews and cleaned them up as well as we could. And Wayne Smith came over and preached that Sunday.
It was very moving to be here on that Sunday morning afterwards. That's a memory I'll never, ever forget.
Bill Raymond had been the minister that was very influential and pivotal for me because I was in high school.
Bill Raymond married us, married Bobby and me in 1981. I loved Bill and Peggy. They also had 3 kids. Bill was a great preacher. Not really, we were in a very traditional worship service at that time, which we would call it old-fashioned now, but it's what normal churches were doing. It was contemporary at the time. We had the latest choir robes and fancy hymnals because that was what churches were doing at that time.
So when Bill Raymond left, Mike Kearns came on the scene.
I was at a small church in Harrison County in 1987, and I heard that Capital City came open, and so I kind of started looking into it and that kind of thing, and so I just put my resume in and met with the elders, and this was in 1987, and I started here in January of 1988.
Mike Kearns was awesome. He's the first minister I'd ever listened to that I actually listened to. He had a little notebook in his hand as he walked, but he never hardly looked at it. He'd glance at it periodically, but not very often. Articulate. He was easy to listen to.
My first Sunday in Capital City was last Sunday of July 1987. That was the first time I came to the church. When I came to church, everybody say, "How you doing?" I did not have a clue what they're talking about. And I went to Marty Paxson, and I said, "It's how you doing and how do you do it the same thing?" He said, "Yes, ma'am." And I said, "Okay, I get it." No way I speak English. I learned to speak English with children in Sunday school here in soap opera. My precious memories from Capital City. Mark, Seth and Johnny was the same age, and I had to go to work. Mark, before she came to this office, every morning, he stopped by in my apartment, pick up Johnny, and his big wheel came to church. Until, I don't remember for how many years he did that.
I always admired her. And of course, Johnny was good friends with my son, Seth.
One of Mike Kearns' big themes was becoming 3 a.m. friends. Develop the kind of Christian friendships that you can call somebody if you have a need at 3 in the morning.
I had something that I taught here at this church that I called 3 a.m. friends. A 3 a.m. friend is somebody that at 3 o'clock in the morning, you wouldn't hesitate to pick up the phone and call them. And you don't have many of those throughout life. I think I have some here, even to this day. And I hope they feel the same way about me.
I think it was under Mike Kearns that we first started small groups. We called them care groups back then. I think it went to community groups and life groups and all different kinds of names. But Mike Kearns was big on that. Of course, the church had grown some then, and we were to a size that we couldn't all know each other like we did back then. He brought John Suffin here.
It helped a lot when John came on because I was able to give John a lot of stuff. He came on as a youth minister, and I think he started in '89. It's about a year and a half after I was here.
So I was hired here. I guess my first day on staff was April 9th, 1989. So I was 23 years old.
John he was a partner in ministry, I felt. And I was able to bounce things off of him. And
Of course, Mike had known John and that relationship, and then John comes.
I was teaching the high school Sunday school class when we hired some red-headed young youth minister named John Sutphin. You may have heard of him.
But he was good with the youth. He really got the youth program started. Got them started going to CIY conferences and really built a good youth program.
I assumed the role of youth ministry back then, which was drastically different than what it is today. So I had birth through high school that I was over in that day and time.
We have been reminded more than once that John Sutphin did youth ministry, and he did babies all the way up through 12th graders. So it does take three of us to replace John. It's true.
On Sunday nights, Sunday mornings, the middle school girls, middle school boys, and high school kids met in my basement. And I led a Bible study for college-age people in my living room. And then on Sunday nights, the high school students met in my basement, and the middle school students met over here in the church at that time on Sunday nights.
You know, we just had a variety of preachers, anybody that we could hook up to, the elders could find to come and give us a sermon. And they were good. I mean, you know, it was interesting. It was very diverse.
We had several interim test sermons by different people, and none of them fit.
The elders were taking their time to find the best fit for our congregation. And I think they did a really good job with that.
And I knew that there were a lot of professors who would go out on the weekends and fill in, preach kind of thing. So I reached out to Doc and said, hey, you interested in coming? I had a relationship with Doc. I was not a student of his because when he came to the college, I was a junior. And so he basically came in teaching freshman classes. But I was a soccer player, and he ended up getting lucky enough to be asked to coach the soccer team.
I had taught at the college for 10 years, and it was actually my dream job. In the meantime, that last year when I was at the college, I was doing interim preaching here because Cap City was between pastors.
While we're in this interim period, Doc Pattison had agreed to be our fill-in preacher.
The fact that he was a professor, his deep knowledge of the scriptures.
Pattison's not a preacher. He's a teacher. So it's not your traditional hellfire damnation preaching, come to the altar, hurry up, you know. It's teaching you why you should come to the altar.
He was much more a teacher than a preacher.
He was a teacher, but he got the message across.
Pattison comes in and he starts teaching, and it's like, wow, this is deep. He knows scripture, and it's real.
But every time we would look at this or that or the other thing, it all just kept coming back to the same person.
They had asked me early on in the process whether I would consider it, and I told them no. I was very content with where I was at the college. And then a little later on, when I got a pink slip, I decided it might be a good idea at least to look at it.
And then I wound up being the chair, and it wasn't long after that we start trying to get our act together and figure out who we're going to find. And Doc comes to us and says, you know, on second thought, I'll take the job.
And that he had already been investing in the congregation was a plus. And so after looking at all of those factors and looking at the folks that perhaps could come in who were quality people, it just kept coming back to Doc.
I told the church that I'd come here for 3 years, just simply because the church was so troubled. I figured that might be enough time to set it right. And it didn't turn out that way.
But the Bible teaches us that there is nothing that we have ever done that would make God love us less. And there is nothing that we could ever do that would make God love us more. For some crazy reason, God is madly in love with us right now.
Join us now for this week's message.
The Frankfurt Christian Academy, my goodness, it came about in probably the late 90s. And so they had this vision to bring a Christian academy, a Christian school to our community. At that point in time, we did not have a Christian school per se here in our community. One of the things that they had need of was space, because they did not have the financial resources to purchase a building or rent a building, even once they left here and were able to get their own facility, which is over now on 421, which is, for those who are around Frankfort, remember the old Union Underwear building, which is what that was. We've always had a great partnership with TFCA, even still to this day. Yeah, that was, we first started looking at that probably in 93, 94. Mike Kearns was our senior minister at the time.
We developed the plan for that Family Life Center. We started raising the funds for it.
There was a works project, a building project that was being pursued, and they came up with a name for it for the sake of the call.
And eventually it was built. And it still affects the ministry today.
I remember at the time, our folk were a little hesitant, and people were really, really nervous about venturing out that far into a building project at that cost. And then, a year afterwards, the consensus was we didn't build big enough.
After it was built, and we started using it, started letting the community use it, I saw the benefits. And it was an outreach that I hadn't actually realized would materialize.
But I think it's been a great resource for us as far as outreach in our community.
As far as the community, we've always had the perspective here that this building ought to be used so that it is difficult to keep looking good. We want it to be used constantly.
The church building is never empty. I mean, there's always people here doing something, whether they're playing basketball in the gym or there's a group meeting up in the student worship center or anything like that. There's always something going on here.
As far as what it did for the church, it was a bundle. It allowed us to expand the church's family life beyond just Sundays.
One of the amazing things is we took turns when they opened, and read the Bible cover to cover. Oh yeah, we stood down there on the stage and read the Bible cover to cover, Genesis to Revelation. And it was interesting because I wound up reading 2 or 3 times because nobody would do those 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning times. I don't remember how much, but it took like 3 days or something. We did that up to opening it.
And then one of my very, very fondest memories of this place is in the Family Life Center. And they decided we were going to have our Easter service in there. They set up a boatload of chairs, and we had one Easter service then. Lisa Mackey put together a men's choir, and we sang a song at the Easter service. And the song was by a group called New Song. I don't know if you're familiar with New Song at all. Arise, My Love. I will never forget this ever. We're singing this song, and for anybody who's not familiar with it, there's some parts of the song that are just huge. Anyway, we start that, hit one of these big parts of the song, and the entire congregation leapt to their feet. And it just overwhelmed me. And I get chills now just talking about it. It was really, really an amazing moment.
And I've already probably told you this too. I will never forget, we had a church service in there, and everybody's sitting in chairs, and we're up on the little stage. Whew, this gets close to me today. We sang Arise, My Love. Arise, my love. And when we got to the climatic part of that song, the church, everybody in their pew stood up. But I don't mean they stood up, they leapt out of their chairs. So much that our little men's choir, there's probably 20 of us, and we're standing in a little semicircle, almost stumbled with the song. It was so inspiring. We almost couldn't finish. I couldn't. And I know I wasn't the only one. It was a spiritual moment.
When I got here, I was a Bible professor and a Bible scholar. And Bible professors and Bible scholars don't know much about church. At that time, the person, in my opinion, that had the clearest vision of what the church needed to be, how to direct vision of the church, was Rick Warren in Saddleback. And his purpose-driven church was the first one that really catalyzed a lot of those ideas and gave me a sense of direction. Well, the logo when we first got here was much, much busier. I loved it. It was basically, it was an adaptation of the Emmanuel School of Religion logo, which I always loved. As time went on, they finally convinced me, because I'm stubborn. I'm hard to convince when I've got a great idea. But they convinced me it was way too busy. It had to be much, much simpler. And our elders were just playing in an elders meeting with different symbols. Couldn't we just simplify it, Christ-centered, purpose-driven? Couldn't we say Christ-driven? Wouldn't that encompass everything else? As far as the chi, that's always confused people because it looks like an X. It's actually an early Christian symbol for Christ. It's the first Greek letter in the word Christos. And then we began wrapping that around a cross, which we played with a little bit just to make it aesthetically more pleasing.
Well, hello, and welcome to Mayberry. My name's Andy Taylor. I'm the sheriff of these parts, and from time to time do a little justice of the peace work also. Holding court, marrying folks, things like that. Now, we're just as tickled as can be. Excuse me, folks, I don't know where my manners have run off to. This here's my boy, Opie. Opie, say howdy-do to the fine folks, and Merry Christmas.
Howdy do. Merry Christmas, fine folks.
Now, like I was saying, we're just as tickled as can be to have you fine folks here with us. And we want you to know we appreciate you being here. We do. It's Christmas time in Mayberry, and everybody's just as busy as a cow's tail in fly season getting ready and all with the doodads and the decorations and the fine food and the choir caroling in the street and all. I declare, I don't mind telling you, it's my favorite time of the year. It is. Now, there is one thing, though, while you're here that we'll ask of you. And for you folks that have been in Mayberry before,
Mayberry was a peaceful, down-home environment, a small town. And it was a society that I think most people, even today, miss, whether they believe it, whether they recognize that or not. Good was good, bad was bad. It was easy to tell the difference. And Mayberry, I think, reflected that.
Clara Falk walked into my office. She brought in a play, a church play that she had seen down in North Carolina.
Clara was driving this. The thing about Clara, she loved God. She loved Jesus and she loved people. And I think she realized cantatas kind of just feed Christians. It doesn't go beyond these doors. And she was looking for something different.
She had gone home one year for Christmas, and I guess a church in that community had done this production of Christmas in Mayberry. And so she ended up somehow or another coming across a script.
And as the story goes, and someone's probably already told it, Clara goes down and says she saw this play and she wanted Doc to do it, and he goes, "Oh, nobody's going to come and see Mayberry."
She brought back the script, showed it to Doc. Doc said, "You can do it if you want to, but we probably won't have a dozen people come."
Dr. Stephen Pattison said, "You'll be lucky to have 20 people show up."
He, reluctantly said, "Sure, if you want to do it." He said, "I doubt you'll have 75 people that'll come."
I was not there, but I understand Doc said you'll not get 75 people to come.
I thought we'd draw 80, 100 and people would be done.
Andy, it is Christmas, and they are good dancers.
Marnie, Helen, and Thelma Lou can pop in here any minute now. You wouldn't want that now, would you? Now, get them through
What the biggest thing of what I remember about it is how organic it was. It was not manufactured.
This was probably the very first all hands on deck event the church ever had. And the person in my mind, the person that's helping somebody park a car outside in the weather is just as important as everybody that was up on stage. Whoever built the set, they were just important. This is one of the best examples of the church being the church. We are all part of the body of Christ. We all have or possess different resources and talents, and everybody in the church contributed.
But one of the things that I loved about Mayberry is it would not happen if it was just staff driven.
We had people who happened to love Andy Griffith, were absolutely extraordinary in their knowledge.
So a lot of that was basically based out of Tommy Young. He knew the shows so very well, and he knew the good lines.
So Tommy Young, who was basically our Andy Griffith aficionado, I mean, he knew everything.
My father was not going to he was working every night. He wasn't going to get to see it. So he came to what was the dress rehearsal, the very first one. And he told me after it was over, he said, I would pay to come see this. He said, I would pay just to come see those two.
Oh, that's sweet.
Hey, Barney, who's that card from?
What?
That card there, who sent it to you?
Card?
Yeah, who's it from?
Thelma Lou. Who? Thelma Lou.
Oh, your sweetheart sent you a card for Christmas, did she?
It's Christmas. She would.
Yeah. Hey, what'd she say that was sweet?
Sweet?
Yeah, you said sweet there while you was reading. What'd she say?
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, but what else did she say?
Merry Christmas, Barney.
Oh, come on, Barney. You can tell me what Thelma Lou say that was so sweet.
Merry Christmas, Barney. Barney Pooh.
Pooh!
Yeah, Pooh.
There was never any question about, and I did not know. I had seen Jeff and Stacy in church, did not know them personally, but there was no doubt who it was going to be. And to me, he made it. He's the one that made it.
I really believe that Jeff Warnicki was a better Barney Fife than the real Barney Fife.
Jeff Warnicki as Barney was a perfect typecast. I mean, he had the mannerisms down. From a distance, it was Don Knotts on the stage.
Jeff was the absolute master. As a matter of fact, people came up and said, he's better than Don Knotts.
No, how do you get better than Warnicki? He's better Barney than Barney was.
I would put him up against Don Knotts any day for Barney Fife.
Jeff Warnicki's better than Don Knotts ever thought about. He was just better. Different, but better.
Now, Emma, I saw you do it, and don't try to
Tell me that you didn't do it, and don't go thinking you can get by with that kind of thing on my beat. Because when you commit a crime in this town, you pay for it. And I'm the guy that sees to it that you pay for it, because that's my duty.
The first performance, we didn't have a packed house. Second performance, we had more. By the last performance of the first year, it was packed. That's when we decided we had to start giving out tickets.
Well, I think that after that first weekend, it was, this is going to be something that's going to be probably around for a little while.
I was amazed at how it grew. I was just surprised that so many other people loved the Andy Griffith Show.
It became a tradition with a lot of people who came year to year. They'd say, this is how we start our Christmas. Mm-hmm. And people would come in from, I can remember specifically Arizona. And she said, I'm from here, but I live there. She said, I come here every year. This starts our Christmas.
We recognized people after a few years, about halfway through our season. We would have buses come in from other states.
It was a big deal for Frankfort and Franklin County and Shelby County and Woodford County. I mean, it was a big deal, man.
A lot of people. And it wasn't long before everybody in town knew about Mayberry at Capital City Christian Church.
We did it about 115 times.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 55,000 people attended this thing. Of that, approximately 35,000 people were first-timers. They came from Washington State, California, Oregon, Texas, Montana. They were from all around the United States. And people say, they came to that show just to see that show to Kentucky. I said, no. But what they were families that would be coming in to visit during Christmas time, and they would bring, the local folks would get tickets so they could bring their family with them. But we touched people all across the country.
It struck a chord that shocked me. It turned out to be one of the best things that we ever did here at Capital City. Essentially running out of room. It's one of those things that, we tried a variety of alternatives. We were getting up to a close to 90% density in the room. Now, ordinarily, you are considered full when you're at 80%.
We just seemed to be growing. And it got to the point where we were going to have bigger space.
We started to realize we were outgrowing the current facility, the current worship center that we had at that time, which is now the Student Worship Center.
We would pack that room as tight as we could, and we actually had two alternatives. You build, or you basically stop growing. People wanting to come into the church is more important to me.
They had a structure up, but none of the details, no carpet or anything in those days. And they had us come in and write on the floor or on the insides of the walls your very favorite scripture.
Officials are calling the scene in Haiti a total disaster. A record magnitude 7.0 earthquake rocked the Caribbean nation Tuesday. It is the strongest in more than 200 years, collapsing a hospital, heavily damaging other buildings. U.S. officials are dispatching disaster rescue teams, with one saying he expects a serious loss of life.
With me, I went to a friend's house to spend the night in the earthquake. I was in the bedroom. I just left the bedroom and sit down, and I hit when I turn around, this is the only place left in the house. This is the front where I was sitting, and I was on the 3rd floor.
This goes down, and we're just mortified, thinking, oh no, are they okay?
Capital City had taken frequent mission trips to Haiti, and my husband had gone a few times. And this particular time, he was going again, and 2 of my sons were going again. They had been there several days, I don't remember how long, and we get word that there's been this terrible earthquake. And I remember getting a text saying that they were alive and well.
Of course, turned out they were, and then me and my crazy brother were trying to work with U.S. government officials to make arrangements to get y'all out of there.
We knew y'all were there. Boom, earthquake. Everybody's, are they okay? Are they okay? Where are they? We were in touch with the consulate in Haiti. We were in touch with the State Department here. We were in touch with the governor's office. We sat around the table and said, what are we going to do? How can y'all help us out? And then they finally coordinated through the Dominican Republic people with 4-wheel drives that took you across the border. But we had to get authorization because everybody didn't have passports. We had to get them to allow you to cross the border.
I was surely glad when they got home. We went to the airport in Cincinnati to meet up with them, and it was a happy day.
I was in Lexington at a church called Crossroads Christian Church in 2012. And after leaving there, I was kind of looking for a position.
As the church has grown, there became a need for, somebody whose specialty was in worship and in music.
A daunting task when you're at a church that is this size, that really wants to be larger and wants to do all those types of things that they see, because we're smack dab right in the middle of it. We're not this mega church, but we're also not little. So there's just a lot of work to do at this position. And that excites me. It always did, and has excited me since the day that I started working here.
Steve is a phenomenal musician. He's a phenomenal tech person. What he brings to the table on a weekly basis with our worship team, with our stage setup, to me it's phenomenal.
One of the things that I did, one of my visions that I had when I got here, is to really widen the scope when it came to the worship ministry. I want to empower people, and I've been able to see people empowered, and they've become not just people who push buttons or get up there and sing, but have become leaders. And so I've spent a lot of effort trying to make sure that people have a lot of responsibility, and not just the responsibility to make something happen, but you're owning this and you're doing something. And I see that across the board.
I don't know when the soup kitchen actually started, but Dave Taylor, David Burke, Dwayne Ellis, I remember them standing at the Singing Bridge downtown over on the city side on a corner, praying that the Lord would give them an avenue to take care of the homeless. And it might not have been the first, but it was the first or second time that we ever fed the people. We had like 75 people, and it was at the Church of the Ascension in their kitchen. It was a really unique experience, though. I really enjoyed fooling with the soup kitchen.
Ray Burton was an amazing man. He was an elder here for I don't know how long. He wound up having both of his legs amputated. And I thought, oh, goodness, I can't even imagine. I felt like I really, really need to go visit with him in the hospital, see how he's doing and such. And I'm driving over to Lexington. I have what do you say to somebody that's just lost both their legs? I was just clueless. Anyway, I got over there, talked to him for a minute, and it was weird. It didn't take long at all for me to figure out he's ministering to me. And then after that, he thought, I'm immobile. What can I do for their church? So he started praying. And he had a 3-ring binder. It was like this thick. And he prayed for every person in the church by name. Took him out for a good chunk of his day every day. And he was quite an inspiration.
A popular movement and amongst churches at that point in time was not to call it Halloween, but to call it Trunk or Treat. And so, we sort of jumped on that bandwagon and created this event called Trunk or Treat.
One of the things that I've always tried to do is put a certain lightness. I try not to take much seriously except God and family. And so when it was brought up as an outreach thing that we can do, I thought, why not? I'm always looking for a way to reach into the community in some fashion.
To think on a given night that we're going to have somewhere between 1,500 to 1,800 people that come through our building, whether it's inside or outside, and if we're able just to make a small impact with 1% of that, and that opens the door for them to see what we're about here at Capital City, and then go, hey, let's go check out this church that we just went to.
It's always just a ton of fun, though, to get to have that experience and to get people into our church and to see that, to see our building, but to experience the love of our people are willing to share with them, and just to share the love of Jesus really with the community.
It draws people new to the church if you can actually get them serving in that kind of a fashion. If you get someone who is new and they're operating a booth, it's amazing how that cements into the church family so quickly. It's an idea we stole. Nobody has all the good ideas, and so when you hear of a good idea that might help your church, you do it. Well, it's just part of our ethos now here at Cap City.
So we started, I think it was 2011, when we brought that idea back here and started it. And since that time, it has been amazing, the generosity of our church family towards that, and what we've been able to do with those funds. Whether it's helping somebody here in our own church family who's got a need, to people in our community who have the same kind of a need. That's just been another avenue for us to be known in our community as a church that's trying to help people and reach out to them and hopefully touch them when they're in a really difficult spot in their lives.
I was going in the basement in Haiti voice. You can continue the mission, call it Haitian Needy Children Foundation. I told him, how did I see nobody? And I said, yes, Lord. And I came here. Capital City is the only sponsor I have. I don't know, Capital City done so much for me. I clean houses. I see $1 a day to start the mission. I build a library. Right now, if you go to see the work in Haiti, to see the importance to finish that work, it's a lot.
So in 2012, we were doing a sermon series called Love Like Sam. It was about loving people with disabilities. Why, as a church of our size, did we not have a Jesus prom like Southland, which is not very far from us? And in fact, a lot of people from Frankfort were driving to Southland each year to their Jesus prom. Man, that God, he just kept on just laying on my heart to do it. And so that kind of makes me tear up a little bit. So I went to Doc, and believe it or not, I was terrified of the man at the time. I was terrified of him. And so I really wanted to do it, but no one had came forward and wanted to step up and lead. And so I went to Doc, and I just asked him if I could do it. He took a chance, and then I think maybe a week later, we developed a team. We just asked if anybody wanted to join us. They were welcome to, and so we started our first meeting, and then it just developed from there. Jesus Prom is probably, I would say, the largest event that we do as far as service. So you're looking at anywhere between 175 to 220 volunteers. That speaks volumes to what this event does and what this event is about. It's about service, and it's about showing our guests God's love, and that is probably one of the most important pieces to me.
I want people serving alongside each other. It does amazing things for their spiritual health and just for the community of the church family. Research will tell you that very, very few churches with an older pastor continue to grow. At some point, older leaders must step aside for a younger leader. I knew that a younger voice, a younger energy, younger perspective would be important for the health of the church.
You know, you all begin to wonder at what point in time do you need to start looking to have somebody take your place. And in ministry, when you get to a point where, even though I feel like I can still do it, you got to come to a point where maybe it's time for somebody younger to come in. But Doc, I think in his wisdom, realized that this was really something that, needed to be looked at. and needed to be done.
I remember the day that, we were sitting in the congregation and Doc came up and said what his plan was. For me, I really, I think it's just another example of him being a great leader.
We put a team together to start reviewing candidates, and we had some really strong candidates that we took a hard look at. And Ben was one of those candidates who we brought in.
We were looking for certain traits in a person. We were looking around, and he caught our eye.
February of 2022, the month before, January 2022, I'd spoken at a conference for Christian camp leaders, church camp leaders. And someone was at that conference who heard me speak, who heard from this other church that they were looking for people. And so he fed my name to the person who reached out to him, and they fed it kind of up this chain to where eventually Doc was researching me and looking into whether or not I might be a fit and reached out. Where he introduced himself, he introduced the church and kind of the position they were in. He told me that they were looking to bring someone in for a 3-year transition to put them into the lead pastor role.
Came up with a 3-year transition plan, which probably was a little longer than it needed to be, but part of it was because I didn't want to let go.
There's a completely different level of humility that is required in a leader to say, you need to find someone else. But in humility, he looks and says, what's best for the church, what's best for God's kingdom is something different. That takes a ton of humility.
This was very painful. I believed it was right, but it was painful. And so we set up a 3-year plan, in which time we hoped that not only would I have the ability to do whatever I could to prepare Ben, but also to help the church to embrace him.
By bringing me in small doses, slowly over time, it did 2 things. It allowed people to warm up to someone who isn't Doc. And I think it also allowed people some time to warm up to me.
When he got here, for the first 5 months, he came here, I think, started in August. August through December, all he did is preach once a month and read books. Read a book every week, and we'd talk about it. And they were the books that basically explained who we were as a church, why we did what we did.
Like for 6 months, that's all I did was I read books. And it was his way of introducing the church.
We talked very hard, early on. If you view this as a stepping stone, I don't want you here.
And so I think to have the foresight to go ahead and get somebody on board and allow for a multi-year transition plan to take place was just a really smart plan. It was a very responsible plan, like a wildly responsible plan.
It's really, really simple, but it's really, really hard. The way this works is if 2 people can have humility. And that's it. But he has set the tone. And consistently through this 3 years, I felt like so long as he does his job, it's easier for me to do my job. One of the most interesting things to me in all this is, again, I didn't know Doc, he didn't know me. And coming here and working with him, it has been scary over the 3 years how much we think alike.
So working here alongside him, it's been a pleasure to watch him kind of emerge into this role and just to watch them make this transition of responsibility and leadership has been, I don't know what the right word to describe it is. It's been a really cool thing to watch.
Probably after the first month or so, I caught Doc back here one day. I said, Doc, you guys hit it out of the park when you found Ben to lead this church.
The very first time I heard Ben preach, I was hooked. He has a way of presenting the scriptures and his sermon that makes it informative. I might not learn something outright, but he usually hits on something that makes me think.
The blessing of this is if humility can exist, if egos can be set aside for the sake of the church, then the church is the one that benefits.
Well, I talked to Bob Russell. He was the pastor over at the Southeast, and when he learned about our 3-year process, I was concerned that a person who was lead pastor material might not want to wait for 3 years. And he had just mentioned that if they're not willing to wait 3 years, they're probably not the right guy for us. Because a guy who is not willing to follow probably doesn't have the wisdom to lead.
Those men and women, they got it right. They wanted to make it a place of truth and grace.
We've always said that our goal is to be conservative theologically and progressive methodologically. I hope that continues to be the case, and never to lose your grasp on the heart of the gospel.
A lot of churches will preach grace and never live it. Cap City, for all of its flaws, is a church that really is set up to give grace, expect grace, to receive grace.
100% grace, 100% truth. We're 24/7 Jesus followers. It's just so ingrained and so embedded in the culture.
It's got to be truth and grace like that. If we do, I have every confidence that this place will continue to be a beacon in this community.
You know, we sit on a little bit of a hill here, the church does, and I hope that we're still a light that shines in this world.
That truth and grace stuff, I hope this church continues to bleed that for a long, long time.
And I thank God, but thank Capital City, this is a church. When they're with you no matter what. We're not perfect. If you're looking for a perfect church, stay home. Because that not exist. Because we are human beings. But I am so grateful for friends I have here.
Capital City is my extended family. The same for Leela, for my wife, and my kids. Cap City has been our life.
Like I said, I think a church ought to be very serious about God and a lightness to life. If you can blend both of those things in, I think that's healthy.
I think there's a culture here of lightness and fun that I think is so biblical and so set in the way that the church should be.
I think for my family, Cap City has meant stability. I think it's meant hope. I think it's meant love, compassion.
I've just always found that the folks here are truly sold out for Jesus. They love the Lord. They love other people.
We moved to St. Petersburg in 2014 and never moved our membership. I'm still a member of Capital City and so proud and thankful that I am.
I hope that we continue to grow. You know, we're about to outgrow this place.
Keep growing. I mean, that's the commission. That's what we're supposed to do.
I think in 12, 13 years from now, we are a church that has outgrown this space.
My hope, my dream is that we would be a church that impacts our community, that we are not a place where seclusion happens, where we go off and hide, but that we're a place that is of the community that we're in, that we are in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, that our church is active, and that what happens here on a Sunday is a regenerating of energy and excitement so that we can make it through the next Monday through Saturday. And not just survive it, but to impact it, to make a difference, to influence the world that we're in and that's around us. And that eventually we're growing God's kingdom. We're bringing people to Jesus, and we're making him have to build more space. That'd be great.
I think the bottom line with any congregation is the heart of its leadership and the heart of its people.
The best way to know what's going to be next is if you look backwards and see what he's already done. And if you can look back and see how God has been faithful to a church consistently over time, you can look back over that history and you can say, okay, well, we can expect God's going to keep doing this in the future. We can expect that if we keep doing our part, for sure, he's going to keep doing his part.
I don't know what the future holds, but I can do like Ben said and look back and see how God's worked in Capital City Christian Church all these years, and I'm excited.
I think the world's always going to need Capital City or something like Capital City.
I just want the main thing to stay the main thing. Love people and love Jesus.
We love God and we love each other. If we do those things and stand on the word, nothing will stop the kingdom of God. Nothing.
We get to show them that because, our videos are so awesome too.
Hey, listen, when y'all edit this, make me look good,
Yeah, it was crazy. Crazy indeed.
He is also he's ornery.
That's cute.
Sorry, that just makes me crazy.
Papa was a rolling stone. Yeah.
It's definitely a communist.
I don't know enough about it to probably comment.
I'm gonna try not to cry. I'm gonna make it weird.
At any point, you just tell me to shut up if you want to.
Pizza Man!
Sorry. Cut.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
You're just gonna look at the camera and go thanks.
Oh, okay. Okay. You ready?
3, 2, 1.
Thanks!